There was a report from the Center for American Progress that was released talking about female breadwinners. What did that actually say?
Well, it was a report was released maybe October sometime.
Okay.
And Maria Shriver was very involved with it in Time magazine. And it was a study of a changeover of how many more women are actually bringing home the bigger paycheck. And again, this becomes a generational gap, because you can imagine 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and when I do some speaking, I actually have one of my slides shows kind of a chronology of situation comedies. And you go back to a family, it was actually a radio show, and,
Okay.
and was, certainly the father was the breadwinner, and the mother was, took care of the mother and the wife. That was her role. And then you had Father Knows Best and Donna Reed show, and certainly the male was the dominant figure. He was the worker, and it created what they called this two-person career, that the male was really the career, and the other and the spouse, and generally the wife, supported that person to grow. It then evolved into a two-career family, which was the baby boomers, and for either from an independent standpoint, that females were more liberated, they had an equal right. Going back 50 years, you had equal opportunity, legislation that was passed, and so the women became acquired a more dominant role in the workplace. At the same time, if you roll back kind of the clock to like 1950, about 1/3 of the population of women were working. And where this study was significant was in just a few weeks ago. This year, almost 50% of the entire workforce, an increase from 33% to 50%, are now women. So that was one thing that was significant. However, women are still paid, 77 cents on the dollar if they're working on an equal job. But an even more significant finding was that 40% of the women were primary breadwinners. So where in the past, even though you had 30 or 40 or even 45% of women working the last few years, they were kind of supplementing the income. It was either dual wage earners, husband may have been making more or an equal amount, and the wife was really the supplement. And you raised children, the wife took off work, the husband did not.
Right.
If there was a problem with child care or elder care, it was the female who was responsible for that. Now, because of the loss of jobs in construction and manufacturing, very male-dominated industries, over 90% of workers in both those industries were men, and those were the hardest hit industries, and those jobs were lost and may never come back. So the significance of the female breadwinners in the workplace, or just in society, is that they're more dominant. 50% of the women are working, and 40% are bringing home the bacon, as they say. Not necessarily making the bacon or preparing the bacon. They're making the bacon. And it's going to take a role, because businesses today still operate with an agrarian, industrial mindset as far as human resource policies. We can both remember going back in time when you wouldn't be hired if you were a 20 or 22-year-old female, because you're likely to get married and get pregnant.
Right.
Or you wouldn't get promoted because, well, what happens if we promote them? They're going to want 6 months off or 9 months off, or they may not come back to work. Well, all that's still a possibility, but it's all really changing. And now when you have senior managers and business owners and entrepreneurs and other key people that are holding that are women that are holding these jobs, back prior career, I mean, when I went to professional school, we had 160 students in my class, and I think it was 13 or 17 were women.
Okay.
It's 50% now. So we're looking at physicians. Medical students are now 50% female. At one time they were less than 10%. Lawyers, dentists, accountants. So very, very key roles. But business doesn't necessarily adapt their policy changes to that. And despite the fact that females are the primary breadwinner, it's not that men picked up child care and elder care. They have picked up child care. A lot of the younger generations, this is where the
Okay.
generation mixes. Gen X and Gen Y are more attuned to being Mr. Moms. The veterans and baby boomers, they may take care of their grandkids, but they weren't necessarily staying home to raise the kids. But females are still the majority caregivers when it comes to parents and their elders. So there's a lot of policy changes that are amongst us. We've had a little bit of reprieve, during the recession the last couple of years, because it wasn't a big issue. People were employers felt that employees needed to be just happy to have a job. Going forward, as the economy rebounds, jobs start being created, the generational issues are certainly going to kind of hit the fan, and as well as just issues with flex times and other gender related issues. They're not an issue, by the way, for the younger generations. Gen Y, Gen X doesn't see what the big deal is. Baby boomers and veterans have a very big problem with this because they're used to an older way.
Yeah, and that's it.